I would
Oh,
keep getting inspired by these little tiny victories or improvements, and just kept chipping away at those, and that would carry me for months, like, okay, I did this differently, and this it changed, and so that's what sort of kept me going. That, and I think the really strong team atmosphere. I really loved being on the team. It was a very cohesive, fun, enjoyable place to be, and I could see progress happening. Like I could feel it changing. And
all right. Welcome, everyone. I hope everyone is having a great day. We're your hosts, Dana and Luigi, and we want to welcome you back to another great episode of Let's Move Canada. Now, today we'll be talking with three-time Olympian and founder of Spirit North, Beckie Scott, about what inspires her and what being healthy means to her. Now, before we introduce Beckie, of course, I would start by saying that this is a podcast that is brought to you by the Canadian Health and Fitness Institute, whose mission is to make Canada the fittest nation on earth by 2030. And of course, to this end, our podcast aims to raise awareness about physical and mental health. And so now we're ready to talk to Beckie and about Beckie. So again, Beckie is just an absolute legend in the world of sports. Dana and I were talking about it. She is someone who's not only made history on the ski trails, but continues to have to make a huge impact off of them, right? Beckie is a three-time Olympian, an Olympic gold and silver medalist, and one of Canada's most decorated cross-country skiers. But beyond the medals, she's been a fierce advocate for clean, fair sports and a true champion for athletes' rights. She's also the founder of Spirit North, an incredibly amazing organization using sport and play to empower Indigenous youth. And she's going to tell us all about that. So we're going to be diving into her journey from Olympic glory to her fight for integrity in sports and her passion for making movement accessible for all. Beckie, we're so thrilled to have you. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here.
Yes, thank you. So, our first question for you, we always start off is tell us a little bit about your childhood. Where did you grow up, and were you very active as a child?
Yes, so I grew up in northeastern Alberta, a little community called Vermilion, about 2 hours east of Edmonton, so pretty close to the Saskatchewan border. And my home actually bordered a provincial park, and my parents were very active outdoor enthusiasts. So I grew up really, immersed in the outdoors, and with parents who were very active themselves. So they were the founding members of the Vermilion Nordic Ski Club. In the summer, we hiked and did wilderness canoe trips all summer long, and in the winter, it was cross country skiing. So yes, I was and swimming in the summer as well. My dad coached the local swim team, so I was part of that. So yes, I was very active as a child.
Oh, that sounds so fun. That
And,
sounds
and,
like a
and
really fun way to spend childhood. Yeah.
oh, absolutely. And how early, like how young were you with going with the family to do all of this?
Yeah, I mean, really, from the very beginning, like I think my parents just packed me along, and that's how I grew up. Really, just being integrated into all their outdoor activities and expeditions and trips and travels that involved outdoor recreation. So it was really threaded through my entire childhood, and I think just became a place of connection to nature, to the wilderness, to activity,
Mhm.
community. Like I really found. Um, a fantastic community in the swim club, for example, and the ski club, and really, opened up my world to a network of social connections that I loved, and actually became really a real founding element of my activity. Even today,
Mhm.
I still enjoy exercise socially for whatever that means. But it just, yeah. So that was how I grew up. It was such a natural part of my family and my life.
Oh, that's fantastic. And it sounds like that exposure, that engagement over time throughout your childhood into adulthood really inspired you to become a competitive cross-country skier. And I'm very curious to know what has been your journey to that, right? Like when did that start? Was it at university? Was it in school? Was it in the club that you were in? Or very curious to know what that path, what that journey into competitive cross-country skiing looked like.
Yeah, so that was very natural. So my parents both did some racing themselves. So there was a little circuit. There still is actually in Alberta called the Alberta Cup Circuit. And so they were traveling around doing this racing themselves. And so I was entered into the races as part of that, just the family trips. And it was really, again, like just super natural, super low key, very no, low pressure. I always tell, students when I talk to them, I wasn't very talented. So I wasn't a kid who, I started winning races right away. I was a really mid to the back of the packer. And but really loved it. Like again, it was just such an inspiring environment and atmosphere to be around for me. I made lots of friends, got to get out of Vermilion on the weekends and just sort of felt like I found my place. I had found my people. Like I really, I think very early on, and I know this now about sport and sport for development in particular, but the feeling of inclusion and belonging that's so inherent in sport, I found that early on, and I think that's what really drew me to competitive cross country ski racing.
Mhm.
Really, really love that.
Yeah. So your cross country skiing career was amazing. Of course, you were the first gold medalist in Canada, right, for cross country skiing. Um, so can you tell us some things, some highlights, some challenges you faced? Just tell us a little bit about your journey as a competitive cross country skier.
Sure. So, I would say the first phase of the journey, like, until I graduated high school and even up until I made the national team was pretty progressive, pretty positive. It was a pretty straightforward trajectory. I went from the Alberta Cup circuit to the national level and everything was really going quite naturally and normally, I would say. And then I made the World Cup team for Canada and started racing internationally, which in cross country skiing is mostly in Europe, Central and Northern Europe. And that was like the most incredibly um,
Is
rude
that
way
like
to get.
Sweden, Denmark, that kind of
Yeah,
area? Or
yeah,
yeah, okay.
Scandinavia.
Right.
So
Yeah.
Scandinavia, Central Europe, and it was just I was just sort of dropped into this world that I couldn't wrap my head around. It was so competitive. The depth of field was just
Mhm.
beyond what I could have imagined. And I was finishing 80th and 90th in some of my first World Cup races,
Um,
and so blown away by the level of competition and how far away I was from being, because I had this sort of, I think, glorious image of going, from provincial to national to international and capping it off with Olympic gold, and there we're done. But but that was just not at all what happened the first couple of years. It was absolutely shocking to me how far behind I was, how poor what my results were, and to be honest, I even at that time too, there was lots of rumors about the use of performance enhancing drugs and
Mhm.
doping around the World Cup, and I mean, I started to feel for the first time, maybe this isn't where I belong. Actually, like this isn't
Mhm.
what I should actually be doing because it just doesn't. No part of this feels like the right path that I'm on anymore, or very, very little of it did. But
Felt like very discouraging at the time.
really, totally, just really hard to believe. It was really hard to find reasons to keep going. I
wow.
felt it was
So
a
what reasons did you find to keep going
Yeah.
through all that?
yeah, yeah, no, don't worry, it gets better. So every now and then, there would be a little glimmer of hope. Like I would go from, 80th to 77th. And
Mm.
I had tweaked something or made some little improvement or change, and that would, change the result at the end of the day. And so I would
Wow.
keep getting inspired by these little tiny victories or improvements, and just kept chipping away at those, and that would carry me, for months. Like, okay, I did this differently, and this, it changed, and so that's what sort of kept me going. That and I think the really strong team atmosphere. I really loved being on the team. It was a very cohesive, fun, enjoyable place to be, and I could see progress happening. Like I could feel it changing, and yeah, and I didn't want to leave my career, a 35th or
Of
40th is my
course,
best.
you worked so hard to get there,
Right,
so
right.
hard,
I
and
felt
so
like there's
invested so
got to
much
be a
time.
yeah, that I felt like there's got to be a way. So that was my motivation. Mhm.
And I think what I like hearing a little about your story is just how you were getting so much out of it. I mean, you get down, but you get this glimmer of hope with the slightest change. You change things, you improve, and you have a good community behind you, right? So I'm curious to know how has being physically active played a positive role in your life beyond what you've already shared.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's being physically active has shaped my entire life, until this point, until today, basically, because it has been a part of my life from the very beginning, and it continues to be a part of my life. So,
Mhm.
it's morphed from into different versions, like, from being a young kid involved in grassroots sports in my little community and making friends there and having so much fun, to being a high performance athlete and living out that dream, to now where physical activity is something we do as a family. It's something I do with my
Mhm.
friends. It's something I know I need if I'm starting to feel low, or need a mental health refreshment or break. Or I just know I can turn to being active for so many things. And I hope that my physical health enables me to be active my for the rest of my life. It's been
Right,
such
right.
a miracle now. Mhm.
Mhm. Do you as a family go cross country skiing as a family together?
Yes, we yeah, we do. And you know what? I love it for that, because when our kids were really little, like it was outings with other families and stuff, destinations and all kinds of things. And now our kids are teenagers and they're both into racing. So I get to go around and do the Alberta Cup circuit again this time of
Oh,
year.
cool.
That's
That's
really cool.
awesome.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Oh.
but the amazing thing to me is that a lot of my peers and friends who were around at the same time when I was younger and doing it are now with their own children. And so
Hmm.
Oh,
I think it's
wow.
a real testament to the sport, like how so many of us have encouraged our kids to get involved and compete and be part of the ski world.
Sounds like
Yeah,
a really
that's.
cool generational activity. That's just so cool.
It's
Hmm.
great. It's a lot of
That
fun.
is great. And what a great way to keep your kids active, and it's fun,
Mhm.
and as a keep, some family outings that aren't just like going to the movies or something, right? It's like you're going out and doing some exercise, getting outside. It's great. Um, so can you tell us a little bit about Spirit North? How did you found like what was the process to founding it, and where did the inspiration come from, and what is happening with that?
For sure. So Spirit North, when I retired, I was invited to be an ambassador for a little learn to ski program that was starting up in northern Alberta.
Mhm.
And so I started traveling up to a number of Indigenous communities in northern Alberta, 5 or 10 times a winter, going to the school in the community and just skiing with the kids, going, just out for the day, spending a day on skis, showing the medals, talking, getting to know the kids. And it was really my firsthand experience with the inequality of life for Indigenous communities, but the disparity of opportunity, with the poverty, with all the challenges and barriers. And what struck me in particular was the lack of opportunity for sport and recreation for children and youth. And as someone whose own life had been shaped so tremendously by sport, it just struck me as really unfair and really unjust. And then the Truth and Reconciliation report was published in 2015.
Mhm.
And, and sport was among the 94 calls to action. And and I went to a summit that the BAM Center held here in the Bull Valley. And yeah, I just was really inspired by all of it to try to do something with what I knew and what I could offer and be part of the reconciliation conversation and journey. And I knew that this model worked to some extent, because when we were there, the kids we were working with and skiing with during the day, we were having so much fun and just really like embracing the opportunity and walking a little taller at the end of the day. And then when we ready to leave, everyone would come over and say, "When are you coming back?" And
Hmm.
it really weighed on me, like this is these my own kids I'm going home to have every opportunity in the world through sport. And this opportunity that we're bringing is the only one of the only maybe that these kids have. So
Hmm.
we need to change that. And there's no reason, there was no good reason I could think of that Indigenous kids should not have the same opportunities. So Spirit North was started. So we started with three little communities in Northern Alberta. We were three people, a couple hundred kids, and now it's and the one sport, cross country skiing, and now it's national. It's six provinces and territories, and
Oh,
60,
wow.
It's
Oh,
16,000
amazing.
kids that go through the program every year, and
oh my
about
gosh.
128 communities that we partner with. So it's really taken
Beautiful.
off, and for all the right reasons. Like our philosophy is to work shoulder to shoulder with communities, like to make sure it's really partner led, partner driven. Everything is co-created, and we've
Mhm.
really done a lot of work to integrate language, culture, knowledge, and really support Indigenous identity as well through all of it. So that yeah, so in the sports now it's year round. It's all kinds of different sports, including traditional games, which has just been so much fun to learn
Mhm.
about, experience, and yeah, yeah, it's been
Wow.
great.
No, no, that's wonderful. Um, Now, I imagine that even within these programs, there's a little bit of mentorship that goes on, right? Because I know that as children participate in these activities, they probably look up to you and to others in what they've done, what they've accomplished as professionals or Olympians. So I'm curious to know what advice you would give to young Canadians who want to become competitive athletes.
I mean, I think the best advice I can give is that you don't have to be talented, and you certainly don't have to come from somewhere that may be considered a hub or a great center for sport. Like I said, I was a kid who I grew up in a little town in northeastern Alberta. I was not a talented athlete by any stretch of the imagination, but I had a
Mhm.
lot of resilience, and I had a lot of belief in my dreams and goals, and I pursued them relentlessly. And I think that will take you further than any amount of talent or special circumstances or system that you might have been born into. It's really so much is determined or can be determined by your determination, by your grit, by
Mhm.
how far you just want to go, and how hard you're willing to work for that.
Hmm. Yeah, we talked to a lot of Olympic athletes and just athletes in general, and
Mhm.
there's they all everyone has these stories of they've hit a wall, or they were faced with some challenge that they were like, do I keep going? Like, do I really want to keep going through this? Right. And they do. They persevere, and they develop, they resiliency is so important, and they just keep going. And with these little, like what you're saying, just like step by step by step. And
Absolutely.
it's amazing what you can accomplish with that mindset.
Yeah,
Uh,
I mean, it may take time. I think you also have to have patience sometimes.
You have to have patience. Yeah, no, that's for sure. Patience with yourself and the situation that you're in and everything. But
Celebrate
it's
small
just so important.
wins.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Luigi?
So sorry. Yeah. Celebrate small wins as well, like any little step, because I love your example of going from what is it, 82nd place to 75th place, right? Like you celebrate these wins and they kind of just stack up on one another. They encourage you, they motivate you to keep going, to persevere, right? Until you're able to go further. So I really love these elements of your story. And to Dana's point, everyone goes through it, right? Everyone at some point goes through it. You just need to have the grit that
Mhm.
you mentioned to just keep pushing.
Yeah,
And of
for
course, like not everyone wants to be a professional athlete, and
Right.
and our podcast is, we really want to just uh, talk to everybody in the general public and just say like physical activity is so important for all these reasons. And what you're saying about how like community and how you feel like you made all these friends when you're in sports, and it's like that is also it's just so important, right? That because that sense of like making friends and having fun and feeling connected, I mean, you can't get that just anywhere, right? You get that really do really well in certain areas like what you're saying, like cross country skiing, or maybe joining a basketball club, or maybe joining a swimming club,
Mhm.
or whatever it is that gets you out there. But it gives you that physical activity that we need, right? And but also that connection that keeps you going and keeps you interested. So with all that, what is one thing that you think Canada should focus on a little bit better than it is right now when it comes to physical activity and health?
Yeah, I think that what Canadians could focus on, or what maybe we should focus on, is just doing a little bit every day, or doing what you can, not biting off these massive goals to maybe, I don't know, run a marathon or whatever. I mean, that's all fine and well, but sometimes I think, as on any of us who have made it, can attest to, sometimes setting the bar so high that it seems unachievable is almost discouraging. And I think, like,
Hmm.
um that just be mindful of, something is better than nothing. Like, so a little bit of exercise someday is better than no exercise, and the benefits will be physical, they will be mental, they could potentially be social, and so just make it part of your routine if you can, and try to do a little bit as often as you can, in little ways, and there's lots of little ways and tips and tricks for integrating more activity into your day. But yeah, I think that would be the advice I would give.
So in other words, let's move little by little, Canada. That's all we're
Yeah.
saying.
That's
Yeah.
right. I just, like, I think all of us, get bogged down with work, or other, demands on our time and our energy, and so, it's really important to keep that as part of your day, and part of your routine, and just try to integrate it wherever you can.
Yeah, no, I agree. I really like that because now that we've moved past the period of New Year's resolutions when people are probably struggling, right? So you've had that first one trial, and now we're going into month three of the year. It's all about doing a little bit, and being consistent. So I really, really appreciate that message.
Yeah. Thank
Well, with all of this, we both want to thank you so much for coming to our podcast, to the Let's Move Canada podcast, to everyone's podcast, right? And not sharing your experience, but also sharing the amazing work that you're doing at Spirit North, and how, for everyone out there. I'll be sharing some details, like the website for this. But for anyone who wants to support and who wants to get involved with Spirit, how would you best advise them to get into to get in touch with you? How would you advise anyone to move forward?
Yeah, I would advise them to go to our website, www.spiritnorthxc.ca. And depending on what you're interested in, there's opportunities there for, there's work, there's jobs, there's fundraising, there's media, there's all kinds of, yeah, just stories and highlights and reports there that you can read if you're interested in learning more about the organization. But yeah, I would start with our website, maybe our social channels, and you can pick up your lead from there.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, with all of this, we really want to thank you, Becky. It's been a wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on and talking to us.
Thank you so much for having me. It was great to speak with you both, and I really enjoyed it.
Beautiful. And thank you to everyone tuning into this episode. Again, we're your hosts, Dana and Luigi. And if you want to learn more about Becky as well as Spirit North, feel free to go to the website at www.spiritnorthxc.ca, all in one. And feel free to check out their social media pages as well. They have links to Instagram, X, etc. on there. And yeah, and also ways that you can engage. And in addition, make sure to follow our Instagram at Let's Move Canada for latest updates, and head over to our website at chfi.fit to learn more about our mission. And don't hesitate to DM us if you're interested in a guest, or if you want to recommend anyone that we could talk to. So stay tuned for next episode announcements, and see you next time.